We're going to talk about all the things that you have to do annually for your business or your nonprofit organization. I want to stress from the outset here, anytime you have an entity, LLC, corporation, nonprofit, it is not set it and forget it. There are things that need to be done on an annual basis that will keep you in compliance. And the whole reason to have a business entity is to protect against your personal assets from being liable for the business you do. And if you aren't doing these regular maintenance filings and reporting, that protection might not be there. So, very important, not set it and forget it. Let's cover some of the things that you have to be mindful of. First, corporations. Corporations require you to hold at least one shareholder meeting and one board of directors meeting every year. There are ways to increase the number of times you have to do this, and there's something in California called a statutory closed corporation, which removes the requirement to hold those meetings. But almost all standard C Corps, this includes S Corps, are going to be required to hold one shareholder meeting and one board of directors meeting every year. Now, that also can be true for nonprofits without the shareholder part, because there's no shareholders in a nonprofit, but you do need to hold regular board meetings for every nonprofit organization. You can change the frequency of that, but it's going to come down to at least one per year. LLCs, no such governance meeting requirement on an annual basis. Your members don't have to meet regularly, so a little bit less maintenance for an LLC. However, for every type of entity in California, there's a filing called a Statement of Information filing, and that is going to be due every year for corporations and nonprofits, usually within 5 months before the end of the month in which you formed the entity. So if you form an entity in, let's say, June, well, 5 months leading up to the end of June, every year for corporations and nonprofits, that Statement of Information filing is due to the Secretary of State. LLCs, every other year, 5 months before the end of the month in which the company was formed. Now, that has a super small filing fee, not a big deal, but you have to be aware of it because if you don't file it, there are sometimes up to $250 fines from the Secretary of State. Now, in addition to those things, taxes, of course, taxes have to be filed and paid every April traditionally. If, on the other hand, you have a different fiscal year, like let's say a lot of nonprofit organizations' fiscal year ends in June, well, then your taxes will be due at a different point in the year, likely after June or around that time, but federal taxes and state taxes are due every year, whichever one of those deadlines. Speaking of taxes, the California minimum franchise tax, that is also due every year. That sometimes can be paid quarterly, as well as your other taxes can be paid quarterly. So it's really important to work with a CPA or a financial advisor to make sure that they are tracking, helping you, reminding you, making sure you pay this stuff on time and report it on time. And then another one to mention, your seller's permit. If you're selling any type of tangible goods, you need a seller's permit. This also goes for folks like photographers that deliver all of their photos, which are digital, on a physical hard drive. That counts. You need to have a seller's permit. And your seller's permit, when you remit your sales tax, that's going to be on a different deadline than a lot of these other deadlines that we're talking about. So this doesn't even get into if you're some type of professional and you have professional registration requirements with your board. As an example, attorneys have to file a corporation application and report every year with the Bar Association. The same goes for therapists and things like that. So these are just a few examples to drive home the point that your business, whatever you're doing for business, it's not set it and forget it. Even things like trademarks, if you have those, have to be renewed between the first 5th and 6th year, and then again later around the decade mark. These are all things that if you don't file, you're not aware of, you don't have someone like your lawyer or your CPA reminding you and nudging you about these things, it can have consequences, and it can really mess up a nonprofit and really mess up the status of your business. So it's not set it and forget it. Make sure you're working with a professional that can help you, or that you at least calendar these things so you don't forget them, and then you can go to the professional to get them filed or reported or whatever, because it's important. Don't forget it. Hope this was helpful. Hope you have a great day. Adios.